We just had the 70th anniversary Grand Prix at Silverstone. My goodness, what a glorious race. First of all, it wasn't just that my favorite driver, Max Verstappen, won. The whole race was fun, interesting, exciting. It felt like it went by in a blur. It was such a fast race. Now, I love Max Verstappen. I think for sure part of that is because, and simply due to the fact that he's the only person that appears to be able to challenge Mercedes. But man, I have also got so much admiration for Max. He's a talented driver. He gets the most out of his car, race in and race out. And I want to talk about Max Verstappen's strategy down the road in a minute. But first, we got to talk about Mercedes, because Mercedes finished in second and third at Silverstone. Lewis Hamilton got second. Valtteri Bottas was in third. And, Max Verstappen kept the pace quite easily with Mercedes. In fact, at many points of the race, yesterday, Max was driving and had lap times that were faster than Mercedes. It was very, very cool to see. At one point, he was even an entire pit stop ahead of Lewis Hamilton, which is like, what? I haven't seen that from Max. It's been a long time since we've seen anybody in a healthy lead over Mercedes. It's like, wow, this is pretty cool to see. And part of why Max Verstappen was so far ahead was because of, I guess was not really so far ahead, but was ahead of Mercedes was because Mercedes was having tire problems. And interestingly enough, Mercedes was really the only team having tire problems during the race. Both Mercedes cars had really bad blistering on their tires. Basically, their tires kept overheating and were like melting away on the tarmac. And the theory out there that I kind of subscribe to as well is that potentially this is happening due to the fact that Mercedes cars generate so much downforce with the design of their car. So the tires heat up faster than all the other cars and kind of melt away because of that downforce created. Now, I do want to talk about Red Bull's strategy with Max because, oh my goodness, it was pretty cool. They took a risk in qualifying. Remember, whatever tires you use to qualify with, you have to also use to start the race. And so Max used hard tires in qualifying, and that did hurt him in qualifying. It cost him some time. He qualified for P4 to start the race. But the hard compound tires that he used are more durable. They might be slower, but they're more durable in the long run. And it helped him during the race. On Instagram, Max said after qualifying on Saturday, he said, not happy with P4, but our choice of tire could make it interesting tomorrow. And it's like, oh, all right. And man, Max really told the future. He was very right. The hard compound tires really helped Max Verstappen. He didn't have any tire trouble. Mercedes was burning up like a flame. And the reality was that Mercedes was helpless to do anything about it. They could not really find an in-race adjustment to make. And they realized at one point, Red Bull just beat us today. And they became really focused. Mercedes became focused on, we got to try to get second or third and get as many points as possible, because today we're not going to beat Max Verstappen and Red Bull. We got to just survive the day. And, Mercedes appears to really struggle in the heat. That's a big narrative coming along in Formula One right now. So the question is, how can Mercedes avoid this from happening again in the future? Next weekend, the race is in Barcelona, Spain. And that's in literally it's next weekend in a couple days. And so Mercedes has to very, very quickly come up with an adjustment to handle the heat and avoid having blistering tires if they want to dominate the race on Sunday. And, Mercedes does have massive, massive resources. So if it's downforce, maybe they can find a way to reduce the downforce. My question is, if it is downforce, and they do find a way to reduce the downforce with the setup of their car, could that maybe slow them down? And it's very possible that in a pursuit to handle the heat better, Mercedes could entirely screw up their car and make it, they just can screw it. Once you tinker a little bit, you can screw everything up. We've seen that in the past where a team has a good setup, they make a change, and they actually make their car worse. It's possible that if Mercedes' car gets slowed down, then it's going to throw a really big set of unexpected adversity in the way of Mercedes, kind of like the Heat already did last weekend. And I honestly wouldn't mind if Mercedes' dominance got slowed down a little bit and maybe making things more competitive. I want to see a Formula One grid where we have Red Bull and Mercedes and Ferrari and maybe the best of the rest all pushing closer together. It'd be really, really fascinating and fun. And so, I don't know. I don't love watching races where Mercedes, and I don't hate Mercedes. A lot of people hate on Mercedes. You have to respect them. They're a well-run team. They have a lot of money, sure, and you can say they buy wins, and I honestly wouldn't argue too much with you on that. But they're still very well-run. They make good decisions, and Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton are very, very talented drivers. You can't take that away from them. But I hate to say, I don't hate to say that it's important to admit that the more that Mercedes is nerfed, the better it is for everybody else. It's more interesting to watch Formula One when Mercedes is on more of a level playing field with the rest of the grid. Now I want to talk about Valtteri Bottas because what happened with Valtteri on Sunday gives him a justifiable reason to be frustrated, in my opinion. Mercedes had Bottas take his second pit stop much earlier than Lewis Hamilton. And so at the end of the race, Lewis Hamilton had fresher, better tires and easily passed Valtteri Bottas. And it's like, I don't know if that was favoritism or not, but it did look a little bit like favoritism towards Lewis Hamilton. And from Valtteri Bottas' perspective, I could totally understand his frustration being like, guys, you left me hanging. I had no chance to pass Lewis because he had better, fresher tires. Whatever strategy you were doing, why didn't I get that strategy as well? Why did I get they did 2 pit stops, a long run at the beginning, a very short run in the middle, and then a longer run at the end. Why didn't I have a longer run at the middle similar to Lewis Hamilton? It's a weird team decision, and Valtteri Bottas has every right to be a little bit frustrated in that instance. Now, Charles Leclerc had a good day for Ferrari. He finished P4. He had a one-stop strategy, executed it very, very well. And, that means he took only one pit stop during a 52-lap race. It's awesome. I really enjoy watching Charles Leclerc. And to me, he really outperformed the car in the 70th anniversary Grand Prix at Silverstone. I mean, I hope that Ferrari can improve as a team down the road because Charles Leclerc could win a lot of races, in my opinion, with a better car. He's a great driver, and I just want to see Ferrari improve around him. Not even because I don't really care about Ferrari. I'm not one of these guys like, yeah, Ferrari. I just like Charles Leclerc. And maybe one of my favorite parts of Formula One anyway, in sports in general, I root for players. I root for people. I root for athletes. I'm not a New Orleans Saints fan. I'm a Drew Brees fan. I'm not a New England Patriots fan. I'm a Tom Brady fan, right? I love players, and I love rooting for drivers in this sport. It's so fun. And I want to see Charles Leclerc get more support around him because he's a talented driver, and I don't want to see his prime years get wasted. And I think he's on the cusp of his prime. We saw a couple flubs earlier this year we'll talk about. There was that moment in the Styrian Grand Prix where, for whatever reason, Charles Leclerc dove inside, making it 3 wide on his teammate Sebastian Vettel. That was an unnecessary risk. It really cost him. But I will say, man, Charles Leclerc just gets better and better and better every time I watch him. And he's entering his prime. And I really hope that Ferrari does not waste those years with Charles Leclerc. Now, I do want to discuss the complicated, I don't even know what to call it, the complicated season of Sebastian Vettel. He's the other driver for Ferrari. You ever heard of the other woman? Like, you're married and you have the other woman, the woman who's not as important. Sebastian Vettel's the other driver for Ferrari. And look, Ferrari has a good PR team. They say all the right stuff. Ferrari makes it look like they're trying to help Sebastian Vettel. What they say is, we love Seb. We're making all these adjustments. We're trying to get better performance out of our car. And the problem is that on the track, it looks like the only reason Sebastian Vettel is out there is because Ferrari needs to have 2 cars on the track. Therefore, Seb needs to be out there. I mean, you can say a lot of pretty stuff about Sebastian Vettel. Honestly, Ferrari, every time they say, we're trying to make adjustments, it really feels like they're blaming Sebastian Vettel. And I really have never been a fan ever since there's so many movies about Ferrari and about, watch, this is silly, but even the way they're shown in the media, watch Ford versus Ferrari or watch, what am I saying? Watch Rush. I know these are movies, but early on in my life, Ferrari was painted as a company that is a little bit weird. They have a lot of favoritism. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes in Ferrari that I go, don't like how they're run. And unfortunately, they're living up to the way they're portrayed in the media. And I think part of that's because they're portrayed accurately in the media. I mean, why was Sebastian Vettel given a completely different strategy than Charles Leclerc. I get it, you have to, in Formula One, if you give both your drivers the same strategy, you are more prone to having things go wrong. You want more of a scatter shot where we're going to try one strategy with this guy, another strategy with this guy to see if one fails, the other one might work. I get that. But from Sebastian Vettel's perspective, you got to be frustrated. Like, why is Charles Leclerc getting the best effort when I'm not? I'm clearly not wanted. I'm sure that's how Seb would feel. And it's clear Seb has the worst car of the two Ferrari drivers. It seems like Sebastian Vettel gets no love, no attention, and Ferrari appears to just be done with him. Like, they're like, hey, we've already moved on. We're done. We got to finish the year with you because you're here, you're under contract, and we need a second driver. But Sebastian Vettel finished P12, and Ferrari appears to not really be investing very much. And I get it, he's leaving. So I don't blame Ferrari. I somewhat understand Ferrari going, this guy's on his way out. We're not going to invest a lot into him. But I do have to feel bad for Sebastian Vettel. Like, man, this dude is not getting the love or attention he needs to be successful as a driver. And it does appear that in the standings, it hurts him. And maybe Ferrari's accepted, we're not going to win this year. This year is all about developing Charles Leclerc. I get it. But either way, Sebastian Vettel's still an important part of your team. Your number 2 driver is a guy who can bring in points for your team. And Ferrari has appeared to just completely write off Sebastian Vettel and does not appear to care very much what happens to him. I don't care what they say. People are going to comment, well, they said this, they said that, they said this. What are their actions? Actions speak way louder than words. And Ferrari's actions appear that they have very little care in the world what happens to Sebastian Vettel as long as he finishes the race to some degree. Now, Nico Hulkenberg finished in P7. He was filling in for Racing Point for Sergio Perez. Filling in for Sergio Perez with Racing Point. And obviously the dream of having Nico Hulkenberg get a podium, it didn't happen. It was a little bit disappointing. And I'll be honest, Nico Hulkenberg did not even outperform his teammate Lance Stroll. And you can say, well, Lance Stroll's been driving the car all year. He's got more familiarity. Lance Stroll got P6. Nico Hulkenberg got P7. And there was a brief moment of excitement for me when Nico Hulkenberg went and got soft tires. I went, ooh, he's going for fastest lap. And that never happened. And Racing Point's going to be happy to get Sergio Perez back whenever he does come back, I think next weekend. And honestly, I believe that Nico Hulkenberg may have just missed out on his chance to ever get a Formula One podium position. Maybe he gets another spot down the road. Right now, he's not signed with anybody next year in Formula One. And I would be shocked if Nico Hulkenberg ever really gets another opportunity in a great car to get a podium in Formula One. I like Nico Hulkenberg. I hope he does. Maybe someday both Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton retire and they go, hey, we're going to bring in George Russell and Nico Hulkenberg will be our driver number 2. That'd be pretty cool. That's a dream of dreams. I think, honestly, Mercedes is going to eye Esteban Ocon whenever they need a new number 2. And maybe George Russell is that guy to be their number 1 someday in the future. But to me, it's like, man, Nico Hulkenberg got P7, started in P3. The dream died pretty quickly. Right off the jump, he got passed by Max Verstappen, and I don't think that Nico Hulkenberg's ever going to get another opportunity this good to have a chance at a podium spot. I just don't think Nico Hulkenberg is ever going to get a podium position at the end of a race, ever going to finish in the top 3 of a Formula One race in the rest of his lifetime. It's sad. It's also an unfortunate reality. I mean, he's gone 178 races now and never gotten a podium. And you can blame the cars all you want. You can do whatever you want. But I feel like if Nico Hulkenberg, and you can even say, like, Nico Hulkenberg was in a car he wasn't very familiar with this weekend. And all those arguments make sense to me. But the reality is that Nico Hulkenberg repeatedly hasn't gotten it done. And it's sad. It's harsh. I don't even like that. I like Nico Hulkenberg. He's a good dude. But repeatedly, he hasn't delivered when he needed to. Alex Albon finished in P5. Honestly, Alex Albon had a tough weekend. But I will say P5 is not terrible. P5, it's better than he's done in a while. He had in the Styrian Grand Prix, he got P4. I want to see Alex Albon pushing Max Verstappen and Mercedes week in and week out. P5 behind Charles Leclerc is an improvement for Alex. I want to give him credit there. It's a step in the right direction. And I just want to see more improvement down the road from Alex Albon. We'll talk about why that is in a minute. Now, after the race, after the 70th anniversary Grand Prix, the driver standings are now like this. Number 1, you have Lewis Hamilton with 107 points. Number 2, making a jump ahead, Max Verstappen has 77 points. And number 3, you have Valtteri Bottas with 73 points. Then after those 3, you have Charles Leclerc with 45 points and Lando Norris with 38 points. That's the top 5 right now in the driver standings in Formula 1. Now, in the constructor standings, in the team standings, you have Mercedes with 180 points. Number 2, you have Red Bull with 113 points. That's the battle for the top 2. Now, the battle for third and also the battle for best of the rest, you have 4 teams vying for 2 spots. You have number 3, Ferrari with 55 points. Number 4, McLaren with 53 points. Number 5, Racing Point with 41 points. Even though they also had 15 points deducted, they're still very competitive. They're in the race. They're the 5th highest team right now in Formula 1. And then you have Renault in 5th place with 36 points. Renault's in 6th place with 36 points. The 2 big battles right now in Formula 1 are who is going to get 3rd and 4th. You have 4 teams competing for only 2 spots. So who is going to get 3rd? Is it Ferrari? Is it McLaren? Is it Renault? Is it Racing Point? Who's going to get 4th? 4 teams vying for 2 spots. And then who's going to win the F1 championships? Who's going to win the Drivers' Championship and who's going to win the Team Constructors' Cup Championship? Max Verstappen is in 2nd behind Lewis Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship. He's ahead of Valtteri Bottas. And Max Verstappen really has a chance to push Lewis Hamilton. And Lewis Hamilton, especially with the heat coming up, if Lewis Hamilton's tires are struggling again next week and maybe the week after that, Max Verstappen has a great opportunity here to make a run at Lewis Hamilton. Now, Red Bull's the only team near Mercedes. They're number 2 in the Constructors' Cup. And if Mercedes keeps struggling with heat, it's going to open up an opportunity where Red Bull, so Max Verstappen as a driver can compete with Lewis Hamilton. But if Red Bull wants to, as a team, challenge Mercedes, 2 things need to happen. Number 1, Mercedes needs to keep having problems with tires and heat. They need to keep having heat issues. The blistering needs to continue in order to help Red Bull stay competitive with Mercedes. But number 2, Alex Albon needs to step up. Alex Albon needs to take a step forward and join the conversation for 3rd and 4th place every single race. Every race this year, like it or not, dependent on result, you've had Mercedes 1 and 2 and Max Verstappen at the top. Alex Albon needs to jump ahead and join that conversation. So that's what I'm looking for in the coming weeks in Formula 1. How does Mercedes handle the heat? What happens in the battle for 3rd and 4th? And can Alex Albon make a step forward to join the conversation at the top in podium finishes week in and week out in Formula 1 races? Alex Albon is the key to Red Bull's success. He needs to take a step forward and get better.